Sorry. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Lisa. Yes. Morning, Samantha, Monica, and everybody else. Hi, Lorna. Kevin, hey there. Mike, welcome back. Okay, so I'm getting things started now that we're here at 11:10. Welcome, everybody, and thanks for being present at the meeting again. So basically, here's the situation. Today, I wanted to kind of go over some review for all of the different fallacies that we studied, because I would like to make sure that you guys are good and prepared for the upcoming quiz that's next class. So don't forget that today was the due date of the second homework assignment. So hopefully you were able to submit it. I think I noticed most of you did. But if you haven't yet sent it to me, make sure you do right away, because later tonight at like maybe about 4 o'clock, after I'm done with some teaching duties, I'm just going to post the answer key to the second homework. So then you can know exactly how you did by just comparing your answers to the answer key. And that way you'll know how you stand heading into the second quiz that we're going to have on Thursday. And if there's any like open questions left over about your overall grade or what you did exactly on the second homework, you can email me to get further clarity. But once the answer key is posted, then everyone will be able to pretty much assess how they did and tell what their overall score is going into that second quiz. So really then, today, I just kind of want us to review all the fallacies one more time. In the syllabus, what it says is that we will talk about marketing and advertising today. And I still want us to do that, but I think that it's best for us to take our time making sure that we're all prepared with the fallacy information before we move on too quickly, so that you have the best preparation you can get for your quiz that's coming right up on Thursday, next class. And for the second quiz, as we've done before, when we have tests, I'll just mail you the test form through Canvas right before the class hour. And then you'll just have until the end of the class period to return back your answers to me through email. And then we'll be on to next week. So this week, it's all about fallacies for one last time. You're going to take your quiz Thursday. Today, we'll try to review all these topics again. And then you should be good to go for the rest of the week. And then we'll look forward to next week when we'll talk about media, marketing, and how to do critical analysis of the media. Now, let's see here. One thing that I think I'll do is extend the due date for the third homework assignment. I think that we'll need, if we're going to spend today talking a little bit about fallacies, then we're probably going to need a little bit of additional time to talk about media and marketing, because that's part of what's involved for homework assignment 3. So originally it's listed as due on the 16th of November. That's 2 weeks from today, but I'll probably push it to later in that week, maybe towards the end of the week or Friday or something, so that you have ample time to complete the third homework assignment. So just one slight edit to a due date, but we'll deal with that in some further announcements to follow after today's meeting. So just one last time, remember to turn your homework ASAP if you haven't already. Once the answer keys are up, then I can't really accept submissions after that, because then all the information's out there and it wouldn't be fair. So yeah, basically try to get it in right away. It's exercise 5.3. It's page 159 and 60 if you're using the 5th edition. Well, we are using the 4th edition, so for the most part, it's page 151 and 2. But in both editions, it's exercise 5-3, so you can't miss if you just look for that in the workbook. Okay, so I think it seems like most people have already said hello or good morning, but if you haven't left it behind a comment, be sure to do that, and then that'll make sure that everyone's attendance is noted for today's meeting. I'll start to record also the Zoom meeting just in case there's any need for it. I think having a double backup system is good. Say that maybe something happens glitchy with one of our streams, then we always have the other one as a backup to use. So covering all our bases. Okay, so then I guess let's just go ahead and try to review these fallacies one more time. So let me give you guys some examples, I guess. We'll try that first, and then we'll work off of, actually, no, I think it's better to do the other way. Let's do some definitions first, and then I'll try to give you examples and see if you can match examples to definitions and vice versa. So let's go all the way back to our first group of fallacies, the fallacies of ambiguity. Now, there are 5 different fallacies of ambiguity, and let me know if some of you can tell me the names of any of them. So some different fallacies of ambiguity include, let me know. Which ones are you aware of? Amphibole, good. Equivocation, also correct, yes. So there's 2. Accent, morning there, Tan. Division, and last but not least, composition. Okay, good. So let's ask, what is the fallacy of equivocation? What's the definition of that? We'll just start off with the first one. Someone will let us know. What's the division? Sorry, I meant to say equivocation fallacy. All right, thanks, Jeannie. When a key term in an argument is used multiple times, but with different meanings. Like, so if I say to you that, oh, hi, Michaela, yes, good morning, and it is when a key term in an argument is used multiple times with different meanings. Correct. So like in one example to start, when we were talking about that, we mentioned, like Joe's at a bank, banks, lend money. So Joe is at a lending institution. But the word bank could have been used in different ways. In one premise, we imagine that it could have been used to refer to the riverbank, like the edge of a river. In the second premise, it may have referred to an actual financial bank. But if we've used the word in these 2 different ways, then the conclusion doesn't follow anymore from those 2 premises. So that's the equivocation fallacy. Next up, the amphibole fallacy. What's that one like? Let's hear about amphibole one more time. Okay, when there's a grammatical mistake in an argument which allows more than one conclusion to be drawn. Yes. So like for an example, the researcher took pictures of the malnourished natives, but they were underdeveloped. Now, what's the grammatically ambiguous term in that statement? The researcher took pictures of the malnourished natives, but they were underdeveloped. They is the term actually there, Michaela. That's right, Lisa. Because they is a plural pronoun, and in the example, they could be a reference to what or to what. Let me know if anyone catches that. So saying that the researcher took pictures of the malnourished natives and they were underdeveloped, we are not sure whether they is a reference to the pictures that were not fully developed, because photos have to be developed in like a photo lab, but it could also be the subjects of the photographs that were underdeveloped, because if they were malnourished, then maybe they didn't have a full, physical development. So they is ambiguous there grammatically. Just an example. Okay, good. So from there, let's speak about the accent fallacy. What's the accent fallacy like? Accent. Next example. Okay, when the meaning of an argument or statement changes based on which word or phrase within it is emphasized. Correct. Now, let's see. I guess I haven't been typing all the info into the other chat because this is all showing up in Zoom. Let me then just do a little something here. Okay. And then next. Morning, Michael. Okay, I'm just typing into the other chat the definitions really quick. Hey there, Alex, welcome back. And then we've also now gone on to the accent fallacy. Cool. Oops, no, didn't mean that. Oh, I did mean it, actually. Oops. Okay, sorry. I think I did actually type the right definition at first, but I second guessed myself because I looked at one part of the definition wrong. So anyway, yeah, there you see the three definitions in both chats. We're now talking about accent. When the meaning of an argument or statement changes based on which word or phrase within it is emphasized. So I think in the textbook there was an example about like a child and a parent. The parent sees the child has burned down the garage, says, I told you never to play with matches. What are you doing? Child says, I know, but I wasn't playing with the matches. I was setting fire to the garage. By accenting and placing an emphasis on the word playing, the child misunderstands the force of the original rule. And so sometimes that can happen in language when a word is italicized, bolded, or just a person lingers on the word a little bit longer when they say it. That can sometimes modify the correct understanding of it. So if someone's taking your words out of context by doing one of these accents, then you have to somehow correct the record. Okay, so that's the accent fallacy. And then what's the definition of the division fallacy? Someone will tell me this one. Let's just get that one out there. Division. Division, what's that one? Okay, very good, Jeannie. One erroneously infers that a characteristic of a group is a characteristic of each member of the group. Right. So the orchestra is an elite orchestra, and therefore the let's say that the person who plays the tambourine in the orchestra is an elite tambourine player. Not necessarily. I mean, you can have a big orchestra with a lot of great sound and music coming out, but it doesn't necessarily mean that every single member of the big orchestra is an elite player. Sometimes it's possible to mask and conceal one person's deficiencies by the overall quality of all the other remaining musicians. So it would not be right, for example, to say that, since they're all elite players, or since the orchestra as a whole, I should say, is elite, then the one player is. Or maybe to say that, the orchestra is producing a beautiful melody. So that means that the triangle player is producing a beautiful melody. Not necessarily, the triangle is kind of like a percussive instrument and it barely makes a tone, and it's not something that has a musical quality to it, like in the sense of different notes. So anyway, these are different examples, I guess, drawn from the example of an orchestra. You could also talk about the difference between a statistical average in a large group as opposed to one member of the group. So in the book, they had the example of men are taller than women. Danny DeVito's a man, and therefore he's taller than women. But generally speaking, no. I mean, even though in general men are taller than women, not every individual man holds that same attribute. So anyways, those are different examples of division. The United States is the strongest power in the world. So you're a United States citizen, so you're the strongest, most powerful person in the world. Again, though, there's a difference between the whole and the parts that form the whole. So then there's composition. And wait, before I move on, I want to make sure to put that definition included into the other chat too. Okay, so there you see it, division. And the form of the division fallacy can also be stated. It's this idea that so group G has characteristic C. And then X is a member of group G. So therefore, the conclusion would seem to be that X has that same characteristic as the group. The form of the division fallacy there listed out. Okay, so let's go ahead and then ask about the composition one, though. How's the composition fallacy go? The definition, anyway. Let's see. Takes a moment, I know, to find it in the notes or in your memory or whatever the case is, but let's see. Composition, the last of the 5 fallacies of ambiguity. Good, Mike. So a person erroneously infers that because a member of a group has a characteristic, that the whole group has the characteristic. Yes, correct. That's the composition fallacy. And just going to put it in the other chat real quick. Yes, so the form that the composition fallacy takes can also be stated. It is the idea that X is a member of group G. Okay, that's the first kind of claim of such an argument, that some individual has a membership in a group or is a part of the group. And then the second premise would simply be that X has a certain characteristic, C. Leading to the conclusion, therefore, that the group has the same characteristic, C, that the individual member has. Okay, but of course that's not always true either. The atoms that form my body are not visible to the naked eye, so therefore my body is not visible to the naked eye. Clearly not true. Just because the individual tiny parts don't have that ability to be seen without microscopes, of course it doesn't mean that the composition of all of them formed together cannot be seen without a microscope. I am a professor, so my family is a bunch of professors. No, not true. So just because I'm a member of a family group and I have that attribute, we cannot say that I'm from a highly educated or a family with high educational attainment. Let's see. Sodium and chloride are individually very harmful and toxic to humans. So sodium chloride is harmful and toxic to humans. But no, not, again, true, because those two elements, when they combine, form table salt, NaCl. Okay, so those are different cases of the composition fallacy. Now let's go on to the next group. The second batch of fallacies are called fallacies of relevance. And the fallacies of relevance are important because you just turned in your homework, and that's what that homework assignment is all about, the 8 fallacies of relevance. So let's go ahead and just name some of these different names of the fallacies of relevance. Included in that group are what concepts. So some of us just throw those out at us. I know you'll know these because we just did the homework. So red herring, straw man, and hasty generalization, appeal to force. Good, we got 4. Appeal to pity, that's 5. Popular appeal, 6. Good all around. Thank you, Tan. Personal attack, right? And am I missing one? The appeal to ignorance. Thank you, Tan. Yes, appeal to ignorance, the 8th. So just a couple words about each one. First of all, with let's talk about the appeal to, personal attack. Let me begin with personal attack. Personal attack, some people call it ad hominem. And what happens with that? What is the definition, basically? Personal attack fallacy. Just want to hear what that definition is one time. You don't like somebody's argument? Yes, correct, Mike. But instead of making a logical counter-argument, you attack the person that presented the argument in a personal way. So somebody gives you an argument why you should vote for a particular bill. Like if it was Prop 22, they give you the argument why you should vote yes. And you say to them, oh, come on, I'm not going to agree with you because obviously, like you don't even know how to like drive. You're such a bad driver. Like, I don't think I can hear any argument about what law is good or bad from a person that doesn't even know how to take a left turn. But that's not relevant to the argument. That's not relevant to the topic of discussion. So when you make a personal attack on somebody, whether it's about their appearance, their circumstances, their gender, their past, their family, um, their orientation, their skill set, whatever it may be, those things should not be mentioned in trying to refute a person's argument. In refuting their argument, you would consider the information stated in the argument itself, not any extraneous or irrelevant information about the person presenting you with the claims. Okay, so that's appeal to, personal attack ad hominem. After that, there's appeal to force. Sometimes it's called scare tactics. How does a scare tactic fallacy go? You don't want you want someone to change their mind or to back off from their own position or to agree with you. But the way you do it is not to try and persuade them with reason. Instead, you do what? To get the person to agree with you, you simply do what? Or try to do what? The appeal to force. You use force or threaten them to back down. That's right. And also, by the way, let me make sure that all this info is getting into both. So, okay, that's personal attack. And then there's the appeal to force fallacy. Okay. Right. So appeal to force. You use or threaten to use force to get someone to back down or to accept your own position. So it's like, don't disagree with me if you want to live in this house. Don't disagree with me if you want to keep your job. Um, I wouldn't be saying that if I was you because don't forget that I know that secret that you don't want all your friends to hear about. So in all these cases, somebody is trying to get you to change your mind or to accept their viewpoint, but not because they try to reason with you about why that claim is true. Instead, because they try to use some type of leverage over you, threaten you, intimidate you, and so forth. And that's not a rational thing to do because it doesn't even prove the claim that you're making. It just shows that you hold some type of power over the other person, which can bend them to your will. Um, but that's not what people should do. Like, so if you say, if you don't agree with me, then I'm going to make sure that your business goes, you know, completely bankrupt. You're not really reasoning with the person as to why their arguments are wrong. So anyway, appeal to force. Next, we can talk about the appeal to pity fallacy. Appeal to pity is simple and straightforward. So that is when a person invokes pity in an argument or discussion, but it's not relevant to the circumstances. So appeal to pity. So you're trying to get somebody to give you some type of special treatment. You're pleading for like special consideration or an exception to the rule. And the problem is that it's not really relevant to the circumstances that are at hand. So please give me an extension on my paper because I've just really been having a hard time ever since I watched this really sad documentary, and it's really shaken me up, and I'm just not really ready right now to submit. I don't know, that's kind of a weak reason. It's not a very significant basis to request this exception to the rules. So in general, we have to make sure that we don't just rely on pity to get our way or to get people to agree with us. Um, there should be a better reason than that. Although in some cases, if a person has a very serious issue that needs to be considered, then it might not be an appeal to pity. If somebody says, I need an extension on my paper because I've got the coronavirus and I'm, on the hospital and I need a ventilator, I couldn't very well say to them, don't try to make me feel sorry for you. Like, rules are rules or whatever. In that case, it's just too serious to be ignored. But in some cases, people rely on emotional appeals like these to get their way, and it's not really necessarily reasonable. Okay, after the appeal to pity, I guess there's a popular appeal, right? Popular appeal, how does that one work? Can anybody get the definition of the popular appeal? The words themselves kind of give it away, but give you a chance to say what you think it is. Okay, correct. Thank you, Jacob. A person appeals to popular opinion to support their conclusion. That's right. And I'm just going to copy and paste your response there. Yeah, one appeals to popular opinion to support their conclusion. So it's like saying, this is the best restaurant because uh, it's the most popular restaurant, or this is the best movie because it's the most popular movie. Um, saying like, just look at the results of this poll. The majority believe that, um, I don't know, mandated testing um, is a right way to evaluate students for admission to college. But just because the majority thinks this doesn't necessarily mean it's correct. You have to have better arguments than just saying it's popular. Um, if the phone is the better phone, it's not just because it's popular that's better. It's because of what it actually does and what it's like. Um, if a film or TV show or streaming series is good, it's not merely because it's popular. I mean, it's popular because it's good. It's not good because it's popular. You see, it's getting it backwards. So if you like Squid Games or whatever, and you think that's like the best thing out, you should be able to talk about the themes, the plot, the character development, and other facts about it as to why you think it's good. You shouldn't be just saying, it's good because it's the most popular thing streaming. Of course, we do sometimes want to keep up with everybody and know what's happening in popular society and in the world. But our judgments and arguments have to track with what the underlying basis for something's merit is. Okay, so popular appeal. There's also the, let's see here, hasty generalization. With hasty generalization, what happens there? Someone can tell me this one. Hasty generalization. Just takes a moment. I'll give you your time, but just let me know when you're ready what you think is the hasty generalization. Thank you, Mike. So yeah, a person makes a universal claim, but they do it based on a sample that is just either too small or it's a misrepresentative sample. So yeah, like if you said, I don't know, my friend has a cat that just isn't friendly to anybody. And so based off of that, I think that all cats are just kind of like unfriendly pets. But if you're driving that from just one example, it's definitely not enough for you to make that broad general claim. Speaking as a cat owner myself, I guess I could say that I think my cats are very, very affectionate, loyal, and they're the ultimate pets in that sense. So one could say so based off of one example, but it would not be the best kind of evidence to use. General claims, generalizations, require sweeping evidence that doesn't have any contradictions to it, and it can't just be one or two samples that is used to make such claims. Just putting in another chat here real quick. Yeah, so My mom and dad got divorced, so I think that all marriages are bound to fail. Um, I guess statistically there are a lot of failed marriages, and this seems to be on the increase over the past 50 years, but you can't necessarily generalize off of your one set of experiences. So sometimes people think that a limited number of examples is enough to support a very broad statement, but generally speaking, it isn't. One makes a universal claim based on a sample that's either too small or unrepresentative. Sometimes it's too small, sometimes it's a biased sample. So, like if a person says, all my friends agree that so and so is a bad president, so I think America believes that this is a bad president. That's not necessarily true. I mean, if it's a group of friends that you have, then of course maybe you guys share political opinions, but you can't generalize from that self-selected sample. It's like a selection bias. To the whole country. So, anyways, just keeping those thoughts in mind, and we can move to the next. There's two more in this category before we reach the fallacies of unwarranted assumption. So there's next straw man. Let's get a quick definition of straw man, and then I'll discuss with you a little bit. So what is the straw man? Yes, Mike. A person distorts or misrepresents their opponent's argument in order to make it seem easier to refute, to challenge. So I'm putting that here in both chats again. So yeah, they take their opponent's actual argument and they distort it to make it sound worse, to make it sound more radical or more oversimplified than what it actually was. Let's see. Somebody says to you, I just think that this, let me think of a good example. Maybe there's a problem with the way that we allow 18-year-olds to, let me think here. Somebody says, I think that we should raise the smoking age to 21 because there's such harmful effects of tobacco, and it's one of the leading causes of death and disease in our country. It actually really is. There's crazy statistics about that. It kills more people every year, tobacco products, than the combined effects of like suicide, homicide, automobile accidents, drug overdoses. If you combine all those incidences of mortality, cigarettes still claims more lives than all of them put together. So anyway, suppose a person says that that's the reason they think that cigarettes should be only made legally available to people who are 21 and older, so that we don't get people addicted so young. And then their opponent says to them, okay, so let me understand. You think that 18-year-olds are just babies? They shouldn't be able to vote. They shouldn't be able to serve in the military. We should just make high school K through 15 instead of K through 12. I think that you just are making a bad argument that treats children like babies and children, or I should say, young adults like children. But anyway, that's not necessarily what the person's argument was. They were arguing from a public health perspective on the negative impacts of early onset addiction. They didn't say that people that are 18 are immature or are not fit to make, competent decisions as an adult. That's just one randomly selected idea in my mind that I just gave as an example. You can imagine somebody says, I think we need to have restrictions on gun ownership for certain kinds of classes of weapons because I don't see why weapons of war are needed by civilians. We've seen enough cases of mass casualty shootings using these types of weapons. They seem to be the weapon of choice for people that snap and want to kill a bunch of people in public. So maybe we should at least restrict access to some of those semi-automatic weapons. And then somebody says, okay, so basically what you're saying is ban all guns, eliminate the right to bear arms. What are we going to do then if we have a tyrannical government or some other need for self-defense? It seems like you have a radical view. But the person didn't say eliminate gun ownership or to repeal the Second Amendment of the Constitution. They just said that there are certain types of weapons or certain types of ammo, perhaps, which should be regulated. And so that's a different statement than saying there should be an outright ban on weapons across the board. Anyway, we can also imagine on the other hand, somebody says, I think that people should be allowed to own guns. Even some of these high-powered weapons, sometimes they're useful for hunting and for other kind of collections. Plus, it's a constitutionally protected right. and somebody says, okay, so let me understand what you're saying. We should allow people to own nuclear weapons and we should allow people to own bombs. I mean, is that really what you're saying? I can't believe you think that that's a safe thing for a society to do. So your argument's wrong. But they didn't say all those extra things. And that was a misrepresentation of their argument to make it seem as though it was easier to dispute. Okay, so make sure to try and take your opponent's argument as it really was stated and not blowing it out of proportion or whatever to make it seem worse. And then finally, there is the, what's the last one here? Straw man and then red herring. Okay, so the red herring fallacy, interesting concept. Who knows what that one is? There you go. Thank you, Oscar. And same to you, Michaela. It is when a person tries to sidetrack an argument by bringing up a different topic which is not related. So it's the fallacy that happens when someone tries to sidetrack or divert from the main point of discussion and bring up something else, going on a tangent, someone might call it. So you say, I think global warming is a big problem. Look at all this evidence that it's man-made and that we need to get control over it. And somebody says, no, it's not a problem. The real problem is look at our immigration issues. That's where I think we need to be focused. But it's a different issue. So it's not at all a way of disputing the person's claim, just bringing up something else. Somebody says to you, I think it's terrible that you're cheating on your partner. And you say, come on, don't tell me that's terrible. I mean, don't you know that there's some people out there that they commit domestic violence against their partner, and I'm not doing that. So obviously, I mean, it's not that bad. But it's a red herring. I mean, it's not the same kind of bad behavior within a relationship that was discussed by the first individual's reasoning. So when you try to bring up something else, a separate topic, as a way of rejecting a person's initial argument or claim or conclusion, you're using a red herring. The straw man and red herring fallacies both have kind of like a little visual that gives you a way of remembering them. With straw man, you're supposed to be thinking of like a scarecrow, which is a false version of a real person. And so it's sort of like you take the person's actual argument and then you modify it to make it worse, and then you attack this worse version that you've kind of made up. So you're not reporting on the person's real views, but on the straw man's views. And then with the red herring, you're supposed to be thinking of how there are these little smelly fish called herring that are used to help train hunting dogs so that they don't get distracted from the target that they're trying to retrieve for the hunter. By analogy, by metaphor, in life, when you are dealing with a conversational topic, you should not allow the other person to distract you with these red herrings that might throw you off the track or off the scent, as it were, of the original topic of debate or discussion. Okay, so we've covered in good detail, I think, the two groups of fallacies, ambiguity and relevance. So now we just have to go through one of the last category, which are the fallacies of unwarranted assumption. So there's 7 of these, and let's first hear the names, and then we can go over them also. So what are those 7 names of the fallacies of unwarranted assumption? The most recent group that we all talked about, I guess, last Thursday. Okay, loaded question, begging the question. 2 out of 7 already, good. False dilemma, yes. Questionable cause, that's right. Slippery slope, and I know there's 2 more. Naturalistic, good. And what's the last one I'm not seeing? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Which one's left? Inappropriate appeal to authority. Thanks, Oscar. Yeah. By the way, I don't want to leave this behind, so let me add this to our YouTube chat as well. Okay, so here we have 7 topics, or I guess items. Let us start off with the inappropriate appeal to authority fallacy. So how does that one happen, or what happens in it? Inappropriate appeal to authority? What do you know? Let's see what you know. Just take a second, but whenever you're ready, inappropriate appeal to authority. So when a person does what? There you go, Lisa. One appeals to another person's view in order to support their conclusion, but this person is not an authority in the field that is being discussed. That's correct. Okay, so let me put it here too. Okay, good. Yeah, so sometimes people try to say, oh, this has got to be true because so and so said so. But the problem is that if this person, whoever it is not really an authority on the subject matter, then you're making an inappropriate appeal to their authority. Saying that, my priest told me that the vaccines are dangerous and unsafe is a bad argument because a priest doesn't know anything, perhaps, about the science of infectious diseases and what the science of vaccines are. So you're deferring to the wrong authority there. If you say that, I don't know, let me think here. I was talking to my art teacher, and they were telling me that now is the best time to buy a bunch of Bitcoin. You might say, well, this is a bad argument too, because the art teacher has expertise, but not necessarily in finance, investments, and being a stockbroker. So, if you're talking to an investment analyst and they're making these claims, maybe that's proper authority. But just citing a person's expertise that doesn't have expertise is the wrong kind of citation of a person. So just make sure that you don't, refer to someone as an expert when they're really not, and cite their authority when they don't have it. Sometimes we do this because we like the person. Sometimes we do this because we trust the person, even if we don't, even if we're aware that they don't have the credibility in the field that we're looking at. And sometimes it's just because the person is popular or because they're somehow like a cultural figure. Saying that like this actor told you, like for example, Jim Carrey, the comedian. I don't know if he's still on this because I guess now we've had a pandemic, but before that, he used to be a big anti-vaccine guy, and he was always telling everyone, "Oh, watch out! These vaccines could, stunt the development of young children that get vaccinated." But definitely, I would not say listen to the comedian Jim Carrey on vaccines. This guy is good at comedy. He's one of the great physical comedians. If you've seen some of his films, I really loved Ace Ventura as a kid, but that's a different question. This guy's not the expert on vaccines, and he's not the right person to listen to. So anyway, guys, just some examples, but we can keep going. So to the next, how about begging the question? How does this begging the question fallacy go? Just want to hear about that. Begging the question. Good, Mike. Thank you. When one of the premises of the argument is just a reworded version of the conclusion. Yes. So gonna put that over here real quick. Okay. So arguments. Arguments are conclusions that are supported by premises. The conclusion is the claim you're trying to prove, and the premises are supposed to be the evidence that backs the claim up. But it's not a good argument when one of the premises is literally the same thing as the conclusion. Then the conclusion is like supporting itself, which doesn't make sense. If I tell you that, the Lakers are the best basketball team, therefore there's no team that's better than the Lakers, I'm not really making an argument that gives any evidence for the conclusion. I'm just saying they're the best because they're the best. You could make the argument that they're the best if you really wanted to try and give some evidence, if you wanted to raise some claims that are different from the claim that they are the best. Like, okay, they have this personnel. If you know about their team and their players right now, you could say, okay, well, they have like these Hall of Famers, and they have a storied franchise with a lot of titles. Therefore, they're the best. Now you're making at least an argument that is worthy of consideration. But saying they're the best, therefore they're the best, is a circular argument. Now, oftentimes the circular arguments are not stated that obviously as like literally the same claim. usually there will be some attempt to reword it a little bit so it looks slightly different at least, or sounds a little different, but it's not really different. If I told you that the death penalty is immoral, therefore capital punishment is just wrong, this is another example of a circular argument, because if you just decode the language a little, to say that capital punishment is wrong is the same thing as to say the death penalty is immoral, because capital punishment is the death penalty, and wrong equals immoral. So good arguments provide independent reasons for the conclusion. They don't just say the conclusion is true just because. And that's what begging the question is. Okay, so good. Let me ask you then about the questionable cause. Anybody? Questionable cause? What's that one like? Questionable cause. Thank you again, Mike. Yeah, so a person assumes without very good evidence that one thing is the cause of another. And yeah, like to claim that something caused something else, there has to be reliable evidence of that causal connection that can be repeated over time. But sometimes people are just too lazy and they're ready to assign something as a cause to an effect, even if there's no logical link between the two things. So if you said, it was a cloudy day in the morning, and then later on in that day, I got sad news that my grandmother's, sick with cancer. So I feel like the bad weather was like an omen that this would happen. But of course, the development of cancer doesn't happen overnight or on the basis of the weather that day. And it has nothing to do with weather. It has everything to do with the person's physiology and perhaps their exposure to certain carcinogenic substances in the world, if any. So you can't say that that's the cause, even though maybe the mood that you are in makes you want to connect the two things up. A black cat crosses someone's path and they say, okay, well, later on that day, my bike got stolen, and I knew that that would happen once the cat crossed my path because it causes bad luck. But it can't cause bad luck, or if it did, then we would see something that could happen under controlled conditions where, like, using that as a dependent variable, we reliably induce bad luck on people. But of course, if you have any just basic common sense and judgment, you understand that that's not the cause. Somebody says, I place a curse on you because, they didn't like something that you did. And then a negative event happens to you later. You might say, well, the placement of the curse caused that bad result. But we shouldn't just be so, helplessly superstitious about the world, thinking that there's mysterious causes and effects that we have no insight into. You need good evidence to assign something as the cause to an effect later. And if it's questionable, then it's best left for the realm of speculation rather than actually stating it as an argument. Okay, so questionable cause, there we have that. There's also the loaded question. So I'm going with a 3-question examples back to back to back, begging the question, questionable cause, now loaded question. They're all 3 different, even though the word question appears in each one. So what is the question? Sorry, loaded question. Loaded question. Thank you, Jacob. So a person asks a question, but the question has an assumption built into it, right? You're asking a question which assumes something that you don't know. So the question itself assumes the answer to a different question that they did not ask. Okay, so little small typo, I'll correct that though, just nothing big. Okay, loaded question. 1 asks a question which assumes an answer to a different question they didn't ask. So maybe some of you, this one's I think pretty simple and easy. Maybe anybody can give an example on their own. Can you ask a question that's a loaded question? Let's see if you can just put something out there. So imagine a person asking this, and the question is just, it's got a big assumption built into it. Maybe someone has asked you a question of this kind. Who's your boyfriend? There you go, Lisa. Yes. First of all, that's double loaded, I guess, which is a good example. On the one hand, it could be a loaded question because maybe you don't even have a partner. On the other hand, it could also be a loaded question because maybe you don't date a boy, but rather a girl. So in that example, yes, it's definitely a loaded question if the person is not privy to those facts. And I guess they wouldn't be if they were asking the question. Let's see. Who's your boyfriend? Where did you graduate college? Suppose that you're talking to a person a little older. They maybe didn't graduate college, and so to ask them where is a loaded question, assuming that they're college graduate. Um, any others on the same topic? How far along are you? Yeah, okay. How far along are you with your pregnancy? Yes, Oscar. I guess you remember the example that I mentioned before, real life example. If you don't know a person's pregnant, then you shouldn't ask them, when is the baby due? You should establish the fact of pregnancy first before you presume such things. So anyway, good examples all around, guys. We can then, I guess, reach to the last few here. Oh yeah, loaded question because being question, appropriate appeal to authority. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's 3 more: slippery slope, naturalistic, and a false dilemma. Let's talk about the false dilemma then really quick. The false dichotomy, the false choice. What's that one? Help me with the definition one time, and then we'll speak on it a little bit. Yeah, good, Mike. So one reduces the responses to a complicated issue to a simple either or choice where there's only 2 options. And the problem is that if it's false dilemma, then there's actually more than these 2 options, and they're being eliminated by the way that the statement or question is framed. So here we go. Okay, false dilemma. A person reduces the responses to a complex issue to a binary either or choice. So let's see. You either like Coke or Pepsi, but I don't see any Pepsi in your fridge, so you must be a Coke person. That's a false dilemma because obviously there's more soft drink options than those 2. And so to simplify it down to 2 would be giving a person a false choice. Do you identify as straight or gay? Another false choice, a false dilemma, because it could be that the person is some other orientation status, like bisexual or asexual or whatever. Let me think. The same could be, I guess, said of gender, since some people identify as members of gender categories that are neither the male or female in some cases. Let me think. Can anybody else figure out or give an example of a false choice? Just think of like a set of 2 options where there's actually more than those. Are you going to Yale or Princeton? Okay, that's good, Jeannie. Yes, there could be more, of course. There's a lot more options than just those 2. Those are 2 of the big Ivy Leagues, but that's not all that is out there. Do you drive a Ford or a Chevy? Yes, another example. Maybe the person drives something else. Do you want communism or fascism? Yes, another good example, Rory. Perhaps the person just wants to live in a stable democracy that doesn't have either of those 2 features. Did you vote for Trump or Biden? That's another false dilemma because some people didn't vote or they just voted for a third-party candidate. Are you, I don't know, there's so many different examples, but I guess you guys are starting to get the picture, right? If a person tries to box you in by giving you a false choice where there's more than 2 options, then instead of giving a straight answer, you should tell them, no, that's kind of a false dilemma. Why don't we expand the set of options here, and then I can give you a more accurate answer to your request or to your inquiry. Okay, so good examples. Let me think then. There's two more, I guess. There's naturalistic and then the slippery slope. Let's talk to the slippery slope case first. So with slippery slope, let's know what's that concept. Okay, thanks, Eileen. The erroneous, the mistaken idea that if one type of action is either taken or permitted, then eventually all actions of that type will be either taken or permitted. And oftentimes it is characterized as the actions that follow from the first one are going to become gradually worse and worse. So you don't want to take that first action, or it's a warning not to. So that's the slippery slope. One thinks of, like, for example, the peak of like a hill that a person is standing on, which has steep slopes leading down that are quite slippery. And so if they were to take one step, we can judge that they'll probably slide down the hill and take on a bunch of injuries that keep getting worse and worse the farther they fall. That's a metaphor, of course. Now, in reality, this is called slippery slope because, again, the person predicts that some bad sequence of events will follow if one thing is taken or done. So, I don't know, watch out. Don't try a taste of alcohol because it's going to eventually lead you to become a complete destitute drug addict that can't maintain the status of being a productive member of society. Not necessarily. Perhaps that's a little bit overhyped. Maybe a person says, watch out, I would watch out not develop artificial intelligence in computing technology because it may seem like it's fun and games today, but it's putting us on a slippery slope towards a robot takeover of the human race. Maybe somebody says that if gay marriage is recognized by the United States, then eventually people will be able to marry themselves, their appliances, their pets. So let us not go down that road and open the door to these non-traditional forms of marriage by allowing same-sex couples to marry or whatever. So these are all cases of slippery slope fallacies where there's no good evidence that the dystopian prediction that follows from the first act is likely to happen. So don't allow a person to necessarily characterize one set of choices as a necessary precursor to like a whole calamitous sequence of events that follows from it. We need better evidence to make such bold predictions. And finally, we have the naturalistic fallacy. Let's know what that one is. And then once we speak about it a little bit, then I think we'll almost be done with our review here. Okay, thanks, Eileen. The mistaken assumption that whatever is natural is good and whatever is unnatural is bad. So let me just put that in here. Okay, so when people just jump to the conclusion so quickly that something that is claimed as natural is good, or something that is claimed as unnatural is bad, this is oftentimes a fallacy. Let me ask if any of you have examples that you can bring out where a person might make such a claim. Such and such is good because blah, 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 it's from nature, or such and such is bad because it's not. What could be some examples of those types of claims or arguments? I think we all see these quite often in our modern society and life. So maybe I can sample from your own thoughts on this topic. Let's see, whenever you have something, just type it out and we'll see. Or, feel free to use the mic if you want at any point. Yeah, marijuana is harmless because it's natural and from the earth. Correct. That's one good example. Of course, like pulmonary and lung disease issues can still be caused from the use of these substances. And just the fact that it's coming out of nature doesn't necessarily answer all the questions as to its value or lack of value. I mean, not even just marijuana, but cocaine comes from the coca leaf, and opium comes from the opium poppy. But these things, of course, even though they derive from nature, don't necessarily support health or longevity. To the contrary. So that's a good example. How about that's a good case. Continue, guys. What's some others? Cane sugar is better for you than sugar from a lab because it's natural. Right. I think that the scientific evidence does not show that there's significant differences in terms of the health value, whether it's cane or refined sugar. It's still got the same kind of capacity to drive up the amount of sugar in your system. And so if you're like a diabetic, it wouldn't really matter too much which kind you were taking in, although perhaps less refined products overall there could be some argument that they have some type of like health benefits, but in this case I don't think it's clear. Just as the same could be said about genetically modified crops. Say you're eating tomatoes that were produced non-organically, so they're conventionally grown, involving the use of pesticides and other things. The pound for pound health value that they have is identical to the value of those organically grown products, but there could be larger issues about ecological sustainability that have to do with more natural agricultural methods. Like some people worry about pesticides getting into groundwater and things of those kinds. But just in terms of their health status for you, they're identical. Sometimes people say tobacco products are healthier because they were grown naturally or that they are organic. And of course, sometimes people say that things are bad because they are not from nature. Can anybody give examples like those? The two examples I see from you so far are that something's good because it's classified as natural. What about claim that something's bad because it's not somehow classified as natural? Can you think of anything like that? What's something that some people out there might make a fallacious claim is bad because it's not from nature? I mean, I guess in Michaela, your example kind of goes both ways. The cane sugar is better because it is natural. The refined sugar is not better because it is unnatural. So that's on the right lines. Just wanted to see if I can get one or two more examples in the chat. So try your best and let's see. Don't use, don't buy, don't support, blah, 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 because of the fact that it's not from nature. Like what? I've got a lot of thoughts in my own mind, but just want to see if you have anything too. I mean, it could almost be anything that's made by man, anything that's the process of like the industry or technology or innovation. Baby formula, okay, there's one. Don't use it because it's coming from a lab instead of from like the earth. Vaccines, another good example, Rory. They don't grow on trees. They're produced by extremely sophisticated biotechnologies and scientific processes. But again, they're the only hope we have to overcome the threats that nature poses us with in many cases. Whatever, anything technological. So computing, telecommunications, face masks, I guess you could say, would be something that's not from nature, and so therefore they must be bad. Once again, though, that's a bad argument. They do stop and limit the transmission of airborne aerosols from your mouth that, of course, others can inhale, containing disease and germs. It's funny, though, because, I feel like everyone has understood that for so long, why doctors and medics wear these face masks in a hospital setting. Anyway, a lot of people losing their mind over the pandemic. It is a scary thing to see your world change a lot in such a short amount of time. So in a sense, I can understand the stress that it puts on people but got to maintain our reason. We got to maintain rationality. It's not going to help if we also lose our mind while we're dealing with a tough problem. So good examples, guys, all around. And I think that's a fair bit of review. I'm going to quickly just look in the textbook to see if there's any kind of like examples of fallacies from the other workbook exercises that I didn't assign for you guys. And then maybe that'll be helpful to sort of quiz you on these concepts one more time. So these would be fallacies of ambiguity, different examples of them. Let me see if you can figure out. Okay. The football team at State University is the best in the league. Therefore, every member of the football team is one of the best football players in the league. What would that be? The football team at State University is best in the league, so every member of the team is one of the best players in the league. As soon as you feel like you know the name of that one, just type it out. Division, correct. Very good. That's division. How about this? God created man in his own image, but you're a woman, so therefore you are not created in God's image. God created man in his own image, but you're a woman, so therefore you're not created in God's image. Equivocation, good, Michaela, because in the one case we're talking about man, and when they say God created man in his own image, man is just a generic term to refer to humanity, mankind. But then in the second claim, it's like, but you're a woman, meaning you're not a man, like not in the sense of the X, Y, and chromosome stuff. And so the conclusion that you're not created in God's image is because of the equivocation on the term man. On the one hand, using it to refer to like a member of humanity. In the other case, using it to refer to a member of the male part of humanity. How about this? The sign on the door says, no animals allowed. I guess we'll have to find another place for lunch since we're humans, and humans are clearly animals. What do you think? This could also be, I guess I'll just help you with it because it's a little ambiguous, but I think it could be either equivocation or another way of looking at it could be accent. If the person emphasizes the word, because we're humans and humans are clearly animals, then in that case, they may have misunderstood that the statement was clearly to refer to non-human animals. Let's see. The people of Liechtenstein have the highest personal income of any people in the nation in the world. Therefore, Liechtenstein is the richest nation of the world. How about that one? The citizens of Liechtenstein have the highest personal income of any nation. So therefore, Liechtenstein is the richest nation. That's composition. Good. So the individual citizens of Liechtenstein are very wealthy, yes. But they're such a small country that even if you take all their wealth, the composition of all of it does not amount to the wealthiest country because they would have to just have more members for that to be true. Okay, good. Now, let me ask you a few from the other category, the, what do we call, unwarranted assumption category. So, prosecutor to defendant. Did you hide the drugs in your car? What do you think that could be? Loaded question, Mike. Yes, because the question assumes the person had drugs in the car and they may be denying the whole thing. So did you hide drugs in your car is asking them whether they did or didn't hide the drugs. Therefore, that would assume that they even had them in there or that they were theirs. Let's see. My parents don't have a lot of money. Let me get this here. If I don't get into Harvard with at least a partial scholarship, I won't be able to go to college at all. Okay. If I don't get into Harvard with at least a partial scholarship, I won't be able to go to college at all. Perhaps this is what, a false dilemma, yeah, because it makes it seem as though the only option is Harvard or nothing. And of course, there's many choices that are other options besides those two. You might be able to get to a less expensive college or perhaps win a scholarship for a different institution. Okay. Let's see here. Democracy is the best form of government because rule of the majority is always preferable. What do you think? Democracy is the best form of government because rule of the majority is always preferable. These are unwarranted assumptions. Circular reasoning, that's good, Michaela. It's begging the question because it says the same thing twice. Democracy is the best because rule of the majority is always preferable. Preferable is best. Rule of the majority is democracy. So it just says democracy is the best government because democracy is the best government, which is a circular argument. Now, I do think democracy is probably the best out there, but You'd have to give an argument that doesn't just repeat the point. Okay. Let's see here. Oh yeah, here we go. Every time the presidential elections have been on November 6th, the Republicans have won. The elections are on November 6th this year, so a Republican will win the election. What do you think? Whenever the election's fallen on November 6th, the Republicans have won. So it'll be on the 6th this year, therefore they'll win. Questionable cause, right. If Republicans won the election, it's not because of the date of the 6th. It would be because of the political climate at the time that the election was conducted. And so those are correct answers again. Embryonic stem cell research should be banned. It's a gateway to all kinds of other genetic engineering in humans, and it will lead to the exploitation of poor women as fetus farms. What do you think? So embryonic stem cell research should be banned. It's a gateway to all these other genetic engineering methods. Slippery slope. Okay, very good. Yeah, very good. Yeah, some of the examples in there. Oh yeah, okay. Splenda cannot be all that bad for children. After all, it's made from all natural sugar. Pretty easy one. What do you think? Splenda can't be bad, made from all natural sugar, so naturalistic fallacy, right. Okay. What's the limit of appropriate authority? Boyfriend to girlfriend. So what do you want to do tonight? Watch the football game on TV or grab a beer at Joe's bar? What's that? What do you want to do? Watch the game on TV or grab a beer at the bar? Boyfriend says this to girlfriend. False dilemma. Maybe she doesn't want to do either of those two things. And so by giving her only two choices, you're providing a false choice. Okay, guys. Well, I mean, we could go on, but I think we've had both good review and also good discussion of some of the examples. Now, just to let you guys know again, I'm going to post the answer key for the homework you just submitted today. So make sure that you have sent it in, because once the answer key's out there, I can't accept any late submissions anymore from there. And you'll be able to know your score on that. If you want to double check on it because you're not exactly sure, you can quickly email me and I'll let you know. But basically, yeah, we're looking forward to our quiz on Thursday. Next class, we don't have a lecture meeting. We don't have any Zoom or YouTube. It's just going to be another one of our test days. So I'll be mailing you the test form for the fallacy quiz. And all you're going to have to do is, there's going to be 17 examples. You're going to have to give the name of the fallacy that occurs in each of the 17 examples. And they're going to be drawn from all 20 that we've learned in the class. No fallacy is going to be used twice. So there's not going to be any blank example where it says no fallacy. Every example does contain a fallacy. Also, there's no fallacy that's used more than once. So like if you've used equivocation once, you know that it will not be used again in the other answers. So 17 different fallacies will appear on the test, and based on those 17 different examples written, you'll just give the answers, and then that'll be it for Thursday. So if that sounds good to you guys and everything's great, then I'm going to close our streams. Feel free to say goodbye or see you next time, and then I'll be in touch if you need anything between now and Thursday. Okay, thanks a lot, Brian, John, Mike, Amanda, everybody else. Take it easy then, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Amanda, is that Amanda Estrada there? Quickly, I just have a question for you. Are you still here present, Amanda, or no? Let me know if you're hearing me. If so, I just have one quick thing I need to ask you. Thanks, everybody else. I really appreciate it. Yes. No luck with Amanda there? Can you hear me? Just checking. All right. Thanks, Alex. Thank you, too. All right, well, I'll just get with her by email. I thought maybe I'd have a chance during the meeting to ask her a question. But anyway, guys, take it easy, and I'll see you then next time. All right, bye-bye. Closing our Zoom stream. And now I'm closing the YouTube live. meeting. So thanks, Daphne, Diana, and everybody here. Take it easy, and I'll be in touch. See you next time.